Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I want to go through some of this stuff that's been going on around the Windrush generation in the UK and some of the issues that they have been facing recently. And the reason I want to touch on this is because I've had a few friends, a couple of Italian friends and a couple of people from elsewhere around the world, one of my friends from Australia for instance, all coming to me and being like, what does that even mean? What is the Windrush generation? We know baby boomers and we know all of these things, and they seem to be kind of universal to an extent. Well, what is this? How is this all going down? And I want to go through this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I feel like there's some slanting here that has caused this problem, and it kind of ties into some of the stuff we were talking about in regards to attitude inoculation and lack of kind of solid evidential kind of things being given out to people, and in terms of things being presented, and so I want to kind of get into that a little more. But then I also want to draw contrast to a couple of things as well, as a result of some of these inaccurate narratives and things that have caused these kinds of problems in the first place. Now, the issue stems from the whole Brexit thing that's going on, because obviously, as not just as part of Brexit generally, but as part of Brexit, as well as the general argument around immigration within this country, all of those things since what, probably the end of the last Labour government, immigration has been one of those things that have been in the spotlight in this country, because we are a tiny island. We do have a very limited amount of space to accommodate people, especially considering certain large influxes of immigrants that we've had at various points over the last, decade or so. And so as a result, I wanted to come and jump in on this and just explain it for those people who are outside the UK, or even for those people who are inside the UK who haven't been paying attention to it, or maybe haven't noticed everything. So basically, yes, immigration has been a high point focused thing. High point? No, that's probably the wrong word. But a very highly focused area of discussion for a long time in the UK, as it has been from many other places around the world. But obviously, from my experience, when I've been to other places around the world, when I've been to France, Germany, places like that, at points when it was very aggressively discussed in this country, they're much larger countries with much more space, and often the kind of topic of immigration, when it comes up over the last 10 years, hasn't been as big a topic over in those other countries as it has recently, with things like the Syrian crisis in terms of refugees and migrants and things like that. But the Windrush generation itself are a group of individuals who arrived in the UK between about just after the war, so I think it's 1947, 1948, up until about 1970, from other countries outside of the UK. I mean, they were Commonwealth migrants, but they were from places like, in fact, I've got some figures here. They were from places like 15,000, give or take, came from places like Jamaica. 13,000 came from India, and then you had about another 29,000 from various other places, including places like Pakistan, Kenya, South Africa, and so on and so forth. And you know, the Windrush name that's given to this group of people is in reference to, I believe, a ship which brought workers from Jamaica and possibly Trinidad and Tobago as well, from what I recall, over post-war, due to the labour shortages that we had in the UK at the time. So according to my notes here, the reason that generation kind of ended was due to the 1971 Immigration Act, when Commonwealth citizens already living in the UK were given just indefinite leave to remain. They were allowed to stay, and there was seemingly no real need for them to have paperwork, because it was just, well, if you're here, you're here. and then it was kind of changed for British passport holders overseas could only settle in the UK if they actually had a working permit and whatever else, or could prove that they had parents over here and all that kind of thing. But as a result, this has now caused a problem because a fair number of these people from this generation, from this group of people that came over between the end of the 1940s and 1970, 1971, have been receiving letters that are suggesting that they are here illegally. And it's been kind of up in the air as to whether or not it's the Home Office that's the problem, or whether or not it's other people, like the various MPs and ministers and government officials that have been dealing with this situation. And there's been a lot of toing and froing in Prime Minister Question Time the other day, where you had Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn going back and forth at each other, basically blaming to one extent or another each other's parties for the problems that are now being faced by these poor people. And it's kind of a situation that has grown and become more prevalent and more upsetting as a result of other situations that have gone on. I feel like whilst this is an issue and these people need their situations resolved, which should be as simple as just going, well, we know that whilst we don't have any documentation for these people directly, because they the 1971 Act, the Immigration Act, didn't require them to have paperwork. It becomes a situation of going, well, yeah, but you can surely still track down who those people were. It shouldn't be so vastly difficult to work out what's going on here, considering that it's people of a very specific age, from very specific places. You're going to be able to find that information. It might take longer, but it's doable. And when you've got people in government going, like Home Secretary Amber Rudd, apologising and saying that it's appalling the way that these people have been treated. It's also very strange to then see her throw the Home Office under the bus, being concerned too much with policy and strategy and losing sight of the individual. And it's a case of, yes, but hold on. Policy and strategy are determined by those at the top, as is culture. The people at the top who are in charge of things like the Home Office are also the MPs that set the policies, the government that establishes things, enforces things, and develop things. In which case, blaming it on the Home Office, scapegoating them and the way that they operate, if they didn't operate based on policy and strategy, when they have a very large number of people to oversee, that would be incredibly difficult for them to do if they tried to deal with every single person individually. That's a stupid statement. Don't be daft. The thing that stands out, though, is that for the longest time, one of the reasons why the immigration has been in the limelight in this country as part of this discussion, which has then led to negative impacts on these individuals, when it's something that's been completely forgotten about in regards to the history of various immigrants that have come into this country, and various mass immigrations into this country as well, is that immigration has been scapegoated for a very long time for an awful lot of things. We in this country have been conquered, and we've both conquered and ruled most of the world at various times, and also been conquered by a fair number of those places as well. And it's still something that seems to get forgotten about, and especially when the reason why these people came over was due to a labour crisis, a labour shortage that desperately needed remedying for the prosperity of this country. That being forgotten is more, I feel like that's more than just a kick in the teeth. And especially when this has been part of the big discussion for a long time, immigration has been part of this big discussion for a long time. I feel like it's part of the problem here, where people are scapegoating other things rather than dealing with the direct issues and the lies and the silly bullshit that has been told around various things. Where, I don't know, one of the ones that I hear a lot is the immigrants coming to the UK have an awful lot of money spent on them by things like our NHS. When, if you actually look at the numbers, the largest, 2/5 or so of the NHS's budget ends up going towards care for people who are 65 and above. You've got an awful lot more money that ends up going towards our very aging and elderly population than anything else. But again, it doesn't make sense for anybody to criticize that or to raise that as a significant issue, and find a way to manage and restructure and rework so that our system is more effective at caring for those older people, so that we don't have to spend as much money. No one ever addresses those kind of issues. Instead, it's because it's easier to scapegoat people who actually don't take up as much as is suggested. Not by a long shot. I believe I've gone through these figures in another video a while ago. I don't have the full list of figures here right now, so I'll if you guys are interested, then I'll try and find them and I'll leave them in the description if I can. But what I would like to see personally from this situation, the quite frankly is a very strange one, is that I would like to see, firstly, these people just have their issues resolved and be left alone, because quite frankly they've done nothing wrong, and this is a mix of clerical error, the discussion getting out of hand, and the people at the top not understanding how to lead and manage. And then beyond that, we've got a situation whereby it's too easy for the people in charge who have been dealing with these things, not paying attention to them, and just throwing out blanket statements about how immigration needs to be this and these people need to be that, and they've been ignoring the individual as much as anything else. Amber Rudd telling MPs that the Home Office has become too concerned with policy strategy and losing sight of the individual. Well, fine, so have our MPs. They have been horribly so, especially our current government. They have not been paying attention to the individual at all. Because if they were, then we wouldn't have the problems that we're having with the NHS, because they would be more effective in managing, and they would be more open about dealing with it in a way that isn't harmful. They would be listening to the experts behind the entire organisation and institution, and they'd be working with them instead of pissing them off and having nurses and people protest in support of the NHS being sorted out, as opposed to all the silly bollocks that we've seen happening over the last couple of years. I feel like this is a problem that needed talking about, and I hope I've done an okay job of explaining it. How to move forward beyond this in the way that would be most useful overall, I don't know, because we've got lots of people signing petitions to grant full amnesty to people who were a minor between 1948 and 1971, to people calling for information to be dug up, for other things to be found if paperwork no longer exists. We've got all kinds of things going on to support these people, and I'm glad to see it. But at the same time, this doesn't stop the next set of problems. It doesn't stop the poor and negative way that the discussion around immigration, both past, present, and future, has been conducted, and the scapegoating that is continuing to go on in regards to things like immigration as an issue, when previously immigration, as with the Windrush generation, was a way by which the UK was able to sustain itself, develop itself, and grow. And again, this is something that I've talked about before on the channel in regards to people like nurses and abattoir workers and whoever else. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys, especially if you're an individual who by happenstance has ended up being related to one of these individuals. What are they going through at the moment? It must be absolutely terrible, and I would love to be able to kind of see their story firsthand, rather than through the filter of the, or not firsthand, but through the comment section here, where it's more direct and more unfiltered than through a newspaper or a TV interview where it's edited for various effect. Or are you one of those individuals who has received one of these letters about deportation, in this specific situation? I've seen all kinds of things. It's gone mad in various ways. University professors who are here and sponsored by universities still receiving deportation letters and things like that, being told that they're here illegally. It's all kinds of daft when examined in everything that's going on. But anyway, as said, if you have stories, I'd love to hear them. If you've got opinions, I'd love to discuss them down in the comments. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video later. Take care.